Good morning. It's 9 a.m. and I will call to order the December 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Saline County Board of Commissioners. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Shadwick?
Here.
Commissioner Sparks?
Here.
Commissioner Vidrickson?
Here.
Commissioner Weiss?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Okay, I ask that you please join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I would ask that Brad Bowers, our IT director, please explain to the public on how to raise their hand if it's not visible on the screen and so forth to be able to speak today. So Brad, could you give them a quick rundown on how that process works, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. If you have the Zoom client installed on your PC, if you select the participants tab in that client at the right-hand side of the screen, you should see a panel that will allow you to raise your hand. And that's what we're looking for when constituents want to speak in the meeting.
All right, thank you. And at this time, I would ask if there are any citizens who wish to speak on county government, limited to 3 minutes and pertaining to items that are not on today's agenda. So is there anyone who wishes to raise their hand, please?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one person that has raised their hand. I'm going to ask Mr. Brown to unmute at this time.
Good morning.
Hello, Chairman Vidrickson and Saline County Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is Eric Brown. I am coming to you today to give you an update on the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce Foundation grant program that you all allowed us to be involved with and get out to the businesses here in Saline County. So I just wanted to kind of give you an update of where we're at with that and let you know how beneficial it was to these businesses in Saline County. Some quick numbers for you all. Sorry, I pulled them up here. As you remember, we had $2,693,313.71 that the committee gave to us to grant out. We started that process on October the 31st. From that, we received 191 applications. We approved 163 of those applications. 19 of those applications were deemed ineligible based on the guidelines, whether it was from the federal government side or from our grant specific guidelines themselves. And we were able to grant out all those dollars. So 163 applications that were approved. Breaking that down, the average grant amount was $16,522.28. That represented about 782 employees across those 163 businesses, or about 4.79 employees per business. And out of all of the applications, the 191, 89 or 46.59% indicated they were minority or women owned. So those are, I think, some pretty good numbers that I wanted to share with you all. And also thank you for putting your trust in the Chamber and the Chamber Foundation to put this program together and help the community.
All right, thank you, Eric. And from the commission standpoint, we wish to thank the Chamber for their participation. That you did a yeoman's job. We appreciate it. As you know, the governor's office put this on the county to do, I think it was 45 days that we had to do that or something to that effect. And with everything that was going on, it was impossible to get that done by ourselves. And our administrator recognized that and put together, a plan to ask the chamber for help. And that seemed to be well received. So thank you and your staff for your participation and helping us out there. So
Thank you again, Chairman. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. We'll move on to regular business on today's consent agenda, which consists of approval of accounts payable and approval of public forum agenda. Are there any commissioners who wish to amend or do anything with the agenda today? Hearing none, the agenda will stand approved. We will move into our presentations and our RFA action items. Item number 1, RFA 270-20 lease agreement for county vehicles. Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, members of the public. Last Tuesday, staff presented to the commission a proposal to shift the way that we have acquired vehicles for county use in the past by moving to a lease arrangement with Enterprise Fleet Management. Commissioners had a number of questions about that program and ultimately decided to table that action until today's meeting. We did meet yesterday with commissioners in special session to answer additional questions, and not sure that there's a lot more I have to say today, but I am available to answer any final questions, and Brandon Scott from Enterprise is on the line as well.
Okay, are there any commissioners who wish to comment or have questions based on our conversations last week and yesterday? I will have a couple of questions myself that I haven't been able to come up with here for either Phil or Brandon, and that is define the length of the lease to me. I mean, is this 1 year, 2 year, 5 years? I haven't been able to put my finger on that.
The length of the leases will vary based on the vehicles procured. So you're leasing essentially for the value of the vehicle. So the individual leases on the individual vehicles will vary, but what is presented to the commission is the first year implementation of what's envisioned to ultimately be about a 5-year rollout of this program.
And at that having been said, do we have a number that we can wrap our mind around for the cost of the second year or third year or beyond? Or how do we come up with that number?
Brandon, you want to?
Sure. Yeah, so we've developed an analysis for the county, and essentially we anticipate, generally speaking, 3% inflation each year. That's generally what the inflation rate of vehicles is each year. So we anticipate that. At the same token, we also anticipate approximately 3% more in resale each year. So proportionately, it goes up each year from acquisition price and resale as well.
Okay, well, this first year cost of $146,712, that includes our trade-ins, which helps that number come down, I assume. So, I mean, can you give me a best guesstimate for year 2?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on if we have more vehicles that are entered into the agreement next year and what that quantity looks like. So if we start with the 22 recommended in the white fleet, we anticipate that, hey, next year those 21 vehicles may grow to 26 vehicles at that point. So we would anticipate similar costs proportionately moving forward. So yeah, in the first year, yeah, $112,000, but again, you're going to have a large offset from reimbursement savings. You're also going to have a large offset from vehicles to be sold in the first year as well.
So the second year lease then would be significantly higher because we won't have that offset of trade-in vehicles. Is that correct?
Actually, no. So that's a good question, because a lot of these vehicles, we've got 19 vehicles scheduled to be on a 1-year cycle. So we'll actually have a large influx of equity coming back to the county after the first year. And so in the pricing that I have to fill, we have those projections in there. So yeah, we anticipate approximately $112,000 to be injected after the first year back into the county's budget. Once we cycle out 19 vehicles, insert those funds back into the county.
But that 112,000, I mean, where does that, the 146,000 that you have for first year cost? And
yeah, so we have 146,000. The amount of between the resale and reimbursement savings, we're looking at approximately $108,000 across all departments, from the resale of vehicles plus reimbursement savings.
I guess somebody's going to have to help me out then I'm not understanding. The 146,000 is what the cost is according to this to the county, period, right? That includes the trade-in values.
That's before the trade-in values.
That's before. Okay, well, I don't read that this way, so that does explain a little bit to me. So, all right, any other questions or comments from commissioners? If not, Brad, is there any members of the public that wish to speak to this?
Mr. Chairman, I do see a hand raised. I will ask Mr. Holm to unmute.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. And my name is Tim Holm. I'm the owner of Holm Buick GMC in town. I purchased the dealership from Ralph Bennett. And I just was made aware of the proposition that Enterprise has presented to the county. And I commend them for being proactive and offering for the county some simplicity and some newer vehicles. But I really have to say, even just listening to this presentation from Mr. Scott, it seems to me like there's a lot of open-ended questions, I guess, that I would have about it, because there's, well, you have the value of the first year. You don't really know what the values of the second year are, and you're changing. And I'm not trying to refute Mr. Scott. I'm just trying to understand it. You're betting on some equity on the vehicles, and we really don't know for sure if you'll have the equity or not, because that's not a guaranteed number. That's based on the market, just like the stock market can be up and can be down. The vehicles are very much a commodity. So I would assume that Mr. Scott is correct, but we really don't know for sure. And so my question to the commissioners is, if you could get a similar lease program put together by a local dealer, whether it's us or one of the other new car dealers in town, would you be open to listen to a presentation? Because I do know that we have the ability to provide municipal leases for municipalities and for governmental units. I haven't done one yet to this extent, but we do have that ability. And not having much time to prepare for this, I can't give you any options, but I know that we could give you some options at some point in time. And there would be a lot more clarity. I mean, because would have hard numbers to work with, as opposed to kind of what I think might happen, which, not trying to refute Mr. Scott, but it appears to me like if a lot of this is based on equity, that's not a guaranteed number. And that could change radically over the time of this process that's going through. So that's the only thing I would offer up. I see you have 3 actions to take: either to accept the proposition, continue in the vein that you've been doing of purchasing the vehicles, or delay action. We would be more than happy to present some figures for the county if I had a chance to visit with Mr. Smith Haynes. I know you're kind of quite a ways down the road on this, but if we would had a little bit of forewarning and had the opportunity to gather some facts and some information, we might have been able to provide an alternate option for the county to consider. And that alternate option would be with the local business that's they could use the support, whether it's us or any of the other dealers in town. And that's what I have to offer, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holm. We appreciate that and all the things that all the car dealers here in town do for the community. So at this time, I would ask if there are any other questions or comments after his comments from commissioners. If not, I'll bring it back to the commission for possible action.
To the county administrator, what does delaying this look like? What are the, we're probably going to miss out on some end of the year deals, but other than that, Mr. Holmes' comments make a little sense to me. And what are the options, or what are the consequences of delaying it?
Other than the end of year deadlines, particularly for the GM products, there's no real risk in delaying this.
And my motion might not get a second, so it might be a moot point, but would you like, if I made a motion to delay, would you, I mean, is a month enough time? Is it too much time? What are your thoughts on that? Or do I just, is a motion just to delay it to a later time?
I guess it would be, I would be curious about the purpose of the delay and some specificity for staff. So if there were a direction from the commission where you wanted us to go sort of shop this around to the local dealers, I would think we would probably be looking at a minimum of 2 months to get that done realistically, just in terms of bid processes and time to put something together. And but if that's not what you're seeking, then that answer changes.
Monty, before we go any further,
I'll mute myself.
Phil, Phil, this is a parliamentary issue. We have not untabled this from our last meeting. Does that need to be done, or how do we proceed on that? Because this item, this RFA was tabled a week ago.
Yeah, so technically, yeah, you should have a motion to take it off the table, and then, but commissions don't necessarily run by formal Robert's Rules of Order in some respects. For example, you shouldn't debate anything unless you have a motion on the table under Robert's Rules of Order, and I've never seen a commission adhere to that. So, you know.
Well, my thought is that we really haven't debated it. We've asked some questions, I guess, if that's, you look at that. I think it would be maybe proper to get this off the table and then come back into to the motion, because we haven't received a motion yet. Would that be reasonable?
Certainly.
Okay, I'll ask for that motion then.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yes.
interrupt real quick? I
You
do
may.
have two additional hands raised that would like to speak, if you will entertain that.
Speak on, they don't say what they want to speak on though?
They just have their hands raised.
Okay, well, hold on for a second. I want to get this off the table and get it reopened back up, and then we will take those calls.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I do make that motion to untable.
Okay, is there, and I'll second that to get it done real quickly. Been made a motion and a second that we take off last week's tabled agenda item and remove it from the table and to be discussed again. And all of those in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Shadwick
Aye.
and Commissioner White,
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss,
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks,
Aye.
and Commissioner Vidrickson is aye. So that's 5-0. And now we'll put this item back before us. And Brad, I will take the calls, assuming that they're pertaining to this item.
Okay, Mr. Holm, I am asking you to unmute at this time.
Thank you. I was just going to mention that I don't know what the timeline would be, but I certainly think that 2 months would be adequate time, if not maybe sooner than that we could make a appropriate response for the county's benefit.
All right, thank you. And is there someone else, Brad?
One additional, Mr. Scott, I am asking you to unmute at this time.
Thank you, sir. The only other point I wanted to make in terms of the timeline is we do anticipate GM to stop taking orders factory order perspective. So sending the order directly to Detroit for vehicles to be spec'd, equipped, and built is exactly how the department heads have requested. We anticipate that to be the end of the calendar year. That's a fluid timeline, but we anticipate that GM will no longer take factory orders beyond that. Could be give or take, a little bit of time, a week or a couple weeks on that, but from the timeline perspective.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to bring it back to the commission then. And again, I will go back and ask for some sort of a motion pertaining to this item.
I think Jim wants to speak.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Couple questions. These comments from the public have brought to mind. If you enter into an agreement with one party as far as a lease purchase or whatever the program is called, and find something that is more suitable with another vendor, how does that impact? You don't want to be shopping every year for a new lease agreement, but how would that impact it if something better comes along? And secondly, a question for Mr. Holm is, it seems like you're saying that you can guarantee buyback on the vehicles versus Mr. Scott, who says that his projections show they will be this way. I'm a little hesitant that if you guarantee something, you're looking at to be rather conservative just to protect the business side of it. If those questions could be answered, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I tell you, I think we're getting into, I don't want to get into a debate between, the different vendors. We're really discussing this RFA. I don't know how to approach that, Phil, and I don't mean to cut you off, Jim, either, but go ahead, Phil. Do you have a comment?
So to answer Commissioner Weiss's first question, we're not locked into the lease arrangement for a fixed period of time. There would be individual leases on individual vehicles subject to this master agreement. So the master agreement continues until we decide to terminate it, but the actual, if we found, just hypothetically, if we found that Budget Rent-A-Car was offering a better deal on GMs than Enterprise was, there's nothing that would prevent us from having a subset of vehicles leased from a different vendor. As to the second part of the question, I will defer to the chair, but I think those are the kinds of things that we would need to sort out over a period of time, make sure that we're comparing apples to apples, if that's the direction the commission wants to go.
And that is my concern, that we debate that at this time. I mean, I think that it'd be better served if we think that is a debatable item, then we should not move forward. And we should go back to the drawing board, if indeed that is the case, if the commission feels that way. For us and the administration and enterprise and home motor company, home automotive, to get into a debate at this time is probably not the thing that we should be looking at. That's my opinion. If other commissioners wish to object to that, I'm open to that also. Jim, did you want to go forward with your questions to Tim?
No, I'll keep my questions to the commissioners and to the administrator.
Okay. All right, at this time then, I'll go back and Commissioner Shadwick, I know that you had a motion in mind, but
Mr. Chair, would you entertain a motion? Mike
I'm
White
doing
speaking.
that right now.
I move that we enter into an agreement with the enterprise and authorize the county administrator to sign the lease.
And is there a second to that motion? It appears that motion will die for a lack of a second. Is there another motion?
Mr. Chair, I would like to, first of all, say that I do believe in the leasing program. I think that that's the way to go, and I appreciate staff thinking outside the box. That being said, though, my motion is to delay a decision and challenge staff to seek alternative bids or alternative methods to get to this point. And I will not make a time frame on that. Just do it as quickly as possible.
And is there a second to that motion?
I will second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that we delay the bid process and challenge, I'm paraphrasing Monty, so if I get something incorrect, paraphrasing, that we instruct staff to seek alternative bids for the leasing program. Is that close enough to what you said, Monty?
It's better than what I said.
I doubt that. All right. Are there any other questions from commissioners? All of those in favor of the motion that is on the table, please say aye, and I will call the roll here. Commissioner Shadwick?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Nay.
Commissioner Sparks?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss? You need,
Aye.
and Commissioner Vidrickson is aye. So that motion will carry 4-1. So we will move forward in that direction. Thank everyone for participating. And Brandon, I know you've done a lot of work on this, so thank you too. And obviously we're not done with it. So thank you. We will move forward to item number 2. RFA 273-20 Rural Fire District number 6, the Dane Hanson grant with Michelle Barkley, Director of Emergency Management. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Commission. I'm here on behalf of RFD 6 to ask for the acceptance of a $1,000 Dane Hanson grant that they were awarded to assist in the replacement of the fire pump that they have. The fire pump is part of a fire sprinkler system, and this is basically connected to a water tank, which then can be loaned out to any Saline County resident that needs a water supply close by when they're doing a controlled burn. It should be noted that the entire fire pump replacement is $5,000. So Rural Fire District 6 will be paying $4,000 out of their special equipment fund. Staff is asking that we approve the acceptance of the grant so we can help assist those that are doing controlled burning by providing this water source to them.
All right, are there any questions for Michelle from the commissioners? Any comments? If not, I will ask for a motion. Did you want something, Jim? I'm sorry. All right, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve RFA 273-20 as presented by staff.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 273-20 Rural Fire District Number 6 Dane Hanson Grant. Any other comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Shadwick,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks,
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss,
Aye.
and Commissioner Vidrickson is aye. That motion does carry 5-0. We'll move to item number 3, which is RFA 274-20 and Resolution 20-2320, appointing members of Rural Fire number 1, number 2, number 3, number 5, number 6, and number 7 to the Board of Trustees, again with Michelle Barkley, Director from Emergency Management. And the floor is yours, Michelle.
Good morning again. I'm here to request approval of the attached resolution to reappoint board members to the Board of Trustees for the Rural Fire Districts 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. The Board of Trustees of each fire district oversee the operations on behalf of the County Commission. Each district is allowed to appoint 5 to 9 members on their Board of Trustees, and these board members' terms will last for 3 years, meaning that these members appointed today, if approved, will be up for reappointment in 2024. It should be noted that all of these board members have served before and none of them are new appointments. Would you like me to read the names of those being appointed?
That's not necessary. Unless you think we should fill, but I mean, all the commissioners and the public information is available to everyone to see the names. I would ask Michelle, do they have such a thing as term limits on these board appointments, or they can serve indefinitely?
As long as they get reappointed every 3 years, they can continue to serve.
And as far as the appointments go, I mean, do they propose their own people to come onto the board? I mean, the fire district itself proposes
They
the
solicit people that
Yeah.
are interested.
All right. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners? If not, I'll ask for a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve RFA 274-20 and Resolution 20-2320, appointing members to the rural fire districts as presented by staff.
Second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 274-20 and Resolution 2320, appointing members of rural fire districts. All of those in favor of the motion will say aye. Commissioner Shadwick,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks,
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss,
Aye.
and Commissioner Vidrickson is aye. That is 5-0. That motion carries. All right. Thank you, Michelle, for getting all that put together. We'll move to item number 4, which is RFA 275-20 and Resolution 20-2317 with a resolution establishing meeting dates, times for the Board of Commissioners for 2021. And I will go to our administrator, Philip Smith Haynes.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So this is the resolution that is required now under KSA 19-206 to fix meeting dates and times. The proposed resolution keeps with the typical schedule of every Tuesday at 9 a.m. with the exception of the week of the KAC annual conference in October. And of course, special meetings can be held when the chairman deems those necessary, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions or comments from commissioners? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve RFA 275-20 and resolution 20-2317, excuse me, as presented by staff.
Is there a second?
Second the motion, Mike White.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 275-20 and resolution 20-2317, resolution establishing meeting dates and times for the Board of Commissioners of County Commissioners for 2021. And I'll call for the roll call. Monty Chadwick.
Aye.
Mike White.
Aye.
Roger Sparks.
Aye.
Jim Weiss.
Aye.
And Robert Vidrickson is aye. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We'll move to item number 5. Resolution RFA 276-20 and resolution 20-2318, resolution authorizing the transfer of certain funds from the 2020 budget. Again, with Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator.
Good morning again. This is what I would term an annual end-of-year cleanup item. This authorizes the transfer of unspent funds at the time that we finalize the audit, typically next spring, from our operating budgets to our capital budgets. Allows the county to continue to build savings in those capital budgets, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions or comments from commissioners? I should ask, Brad, are there any members of the public that wish to speak to this, with this RFA?
Mr. Chairman, no one has raised their hand indicating they would like to speak.
Thank you. I will bring it back to the commission for action then, please.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve RFA 276-20 and resolution 20-2318, authorizing the transfer of certain funds from the 2020 budget as presented by staff.
Second the motion.
Been moved and seconded for RFA 276-20 and resolution 20-2318, resolution authorizing the transfer of certain funds from the 2020 budget. Are there further comments? Brad, is there anyone from the public that's raised their hands on this one? Or have I already asked that on this?
Mr. Chairman, no one has raised their hand.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Commissioner Chadwick?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks?
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss?
Aye.
That motion does carry 5-0. Item number 6, RFA 277-20 and resolution 20-2319, exempting Saline County, Kansas from the provisions of KSA 75-1120A. Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator.
And good morning again. This item is another audit-related item, a little bit esoteric, but state law generally requires that financial statements of cities and counties be prepared on the basis of generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. The state of Kansas does offer an alternative, which is the Kansas Municipal Auditing and Accounting Guide, or KMAG. Most cities and counties in the state do seek the alternative of KMAG. Saline County has done that for a number of years, and this resolution is required annually. I'd be happy to answer more detailed questions.
Questions from commissioners? Comments? Are there any members of the public that wish to speak to this RFA?
Mr. Chairman, I do not see anyone with their hand raised indicating they'd like to speak.
All right, I will accept a motion from the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, go
I
ahead.
have a quick comment. I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
if I may. Phil, question for you. This is kind of like an end of the year house cleaning project again.
Yes, sir,
Yeah, I'm right in my assumption. Thank you.
you're correct.
All right, I'd ask for a motion then, please.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve RFA 277-20 and resolution 20-2319, exempting Saline County, Kansas from the provisions as presented by staff.
Second the motion.
Moved and seconded that we approve RFA 277-20 and resolution 2319, exempting Saline County, Kansas from the provisions of KSA 75-1120A. Are there further comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. Commissioner Shadwick,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
Mr. Sparks,
Aye.
Mr. Weiss,
Aye.
and Commissioner Vidrickson is aye. That motion does carry 5-0. Thank you. We'll move to item number 7, review of amendment number 1 to resolution 20-2297, review of section 6 of the mask mandate with Jason Tiller from our health department director. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning, gentlemen. Brad, I'll pull up the slides. All right, here we go. So this is our biweekly update. Next slide, please. So in the national picture, we've still seen over 3 million new cases in the last 14 days and 35,000 deaths nationwide. Go to the next slide, please, for the state. Statewide, we're still at, we're now at 204,600 cases in the state. That's an additional 30,000 since 2 weeks ago. But we've also had an additional 54,000 negative tests in that same time period. Next slide. Here in the county, we are currently at 3,749 cases, over 2,200 recovered. We've got about almost 1,500 active ones. And in the last 2 weeks, we have had 13 additional deaths. In that 24 hours after our last update 2 weeks ago, we had 8 during that period, but then that 24 hours. And then thankfully, though, the number of deaths has tapered off since then. I will be happy when we can be able to report again that, we have had no new deaths within the reporting periods. Currently, the hospital has 42 inpatient, additional from KDHE. Saline County has had so far 13,000, almost 14,000 people tested, almost 10,000 negative results, and our monthly positive rate is at 13.8, which is down from 17% that it was last time. One thing I want to say that was interesting as I was putting this together, for the last couple of updates, those 2-week increments we've seen, although the numbers, of course, have gone up, but we've seen a steady increase in those numbers, meaning that from that one report to the next, the amount of cases was higher than that 2 weeks before it, where it might have been 2 million in the 2-week period prior, then it was close to 3 million the next week, a little bit more, the next reporting period. In this one, though, the interesting trend that seemed to kind of come out is that the 2-week increase was from the 7th until yesterday was actually a little bit lower, national, state, and countywide. Now, is that because we are, of all the increased testing and all of the increased communications that are out there and increased mask mandates? Is it because it's getting closer to Christmas and people just, don't want to be quarantined over Christmas? I'm not exactly sure, and I will have to wait, another couple of reporting periods to see if that trend stays kind of looking downward or if it goes back up or what it does. But it was just an interesting note that across the national, state, and local levels, that the totals were actually showing a little bit of a downward trend in that. So if we'll go to the next slide, please. So our cases per month. We are getting close to, we're a little over 1,200 or so this month. Fingers crossed that we don't exceed November with the holidays right now. But as we'll talk about shortly, there was a lot of testing this past weekend. So, and we haven't seen all the results come in from that yet. So there still remains quite a bit to be seen as far as our cases coming up here pretty soon. Next slide. Again, this month we've had more deaths due to COVID-19 than we did last month. Thankfully, that has slowed down in the last week, and hopefully that slowing trend will continue through the end of the month. Next slide. So we started breaking out the clusters by the types of places that they are. Some of these have actually been on the list for quite a while because a cluster is considered closed when we go 28 days without a new case that's related to that cluster. And so there have been at times where we might get to like day 26, 27, and then another one pops up. And so it kind of starts that clock over again. But we've also had quite a few that we have closed out. So with all of the testing that's been going on, and hopefully we can close out some more of these fairly soon. But you can see the clusters are pretty well, except for long-term care where we kind of unfortunately expect to see some, and then private business, they're pretty much spread across the gambit. And these categories are how KDHE defines the types of clusters. So I'm using their terminology so that we stay consistent amongst our discussions as far as, how many clusters there are and where they are at, or what types they are. Next slide. So I mentioned that there were several free testing events over this past weekend. Reports I have gotten from the ones that were conducted through Well Health, Salina Regional, and Salina Family, that there was about 1,400 or so tests that were conducted. Keep in mind that, these were open to anybody. So that doesn't mean that that was 1,400 Saline County residents. That could be from any county around us that came through them. But we should, results are slowly starting to trickle in from all of those. And so I expect that later on tonight or tomorrow that we'll see probably the bulk of those results coming in. From what I have gotten so far is that due to the holidays, these testing events were also being funded by the state using CRF funds. And so since those are expiring, there are currently no other large-scale free testing events planned in the short term. And then after the first of the year, we'll have to look at how we can try and logistically and then financially be able to continue something else like that without that CRF funds being able to back it up. Next slide. The thing that probably everybody wants to know about vaccines, and just keep in mind that information come out about vaccines and where and when is changing, can change and is changing often. Pfizer was out last week to the hospitals. Moderna has been approved and has started to be pushed out to local health departments for EMS, public health staff, and other healthcare workers. And as such, we'll be coordinating between ourselves, Salina Family and Salina Regional, with extra doses to help cover those workers at other healthcare entities that were not directly identified in the state's initial push, and we'll be reaching out to them to coordinate those efforts. The Moderna vaccine doesn't have to be kept ultra cold like the Pfizer one. However, it still has a few complexities. That it is kept frozen. It has to thaw at a certain rate over a certain time. Once you puncture the seal on that vial, you have to be ready to give 10 of them because it's only good for a few hours after it's thawed and punctured. So there'll be some additional coordination as we work with EMS and other healthcare providers to get other healthcare workers vaccinated that weren't previously identified in the state's plan. Next slide. And of course, this is, you may have seen this last week at one of the governor's press conferences. This is their most current draft of expected vaccine availability due to population groups. The one thing I did add is just so that everybody can see, long-term care facilities and residents, there has been coordination and they should be receiving all of their vaccine through the National Pharmacy Program. I think I mentioned a little bit about that last week. And so they are already prepared and I believe supposed to be getting theirs next week for those facilities. And then you can see how they have broken down other population groups. And I expect that, like many things so far, this will probably change a few times as we get more information, and through our press releases and other avenues, we'll try and update the public with what information we get. Just keeping in mind that quite often local health departments are getting the information at the same time as everybody else does when the press conferences are conducted. So, next slide. So it's hard to believe with almost 60 degrees today that Christmas is this week. I know that, a lot of people are still going to, try and have family gatherings and things like that. But really, we need your help to stop the spread. Wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, especially avoid large groups. Just remember that there is a mass gathering restriction. And really, we just want people to, we know that, they're going to have holiday. We just want them to have a safe holiday and not end up with unintentionally giving COVID to all of their families as Christmas presents. Next slide. So just a reminder that, continue in the mask order because it works when everybody does their part, and that we need to continue to be vigilant and act like COVID is everywhere, because it is. One additional thing that Michelle Barkley, the emergency manager, asked me to remind or to add to this is that last week we received 15 pallets of hand sanitizer from the state. Each county was given an allotment of it. And so far we have gotten rid of 5.5 pallets. There's still 9.5 pallets. Each case has 70 bottles, and they are the 3 to 4 ounce small bottles. It is free to businesses, to residents, to anybody. The only stipulation is it cannot be sold. So if there's anybody interested in hand sanitizer for whatever, if they just need more around their house, all they need to do is contact Michelle Barkley at Emergency Management. She's handling the logistics of the distribution on that. And then they can be able to pick that up. And with that, that's all I have today, gentlemen. So I will stand for questions if you have any.
I do have one, Jason, in regards to the vaccine. Do we have any further update as far as what Saline County is getting? I know that the hospital is pretty well taking care of their entire staff, and I had lab work done this morning, and the lady at the lab said that she'd had her shot yesterday. So I just wondered what the update is on the vaccine for Saline County.
All right. So the hospital received Pfizer last week. And so yesterday, we received at the health department 200 doses. That is for staff, for EMS, and then for those additional healthcare workers, like I mentioned earlier. The FQHC Salina family received, I think it was maybe 300 or 400 doses for staff, for their staff. And then we have to work with them to make sure that all of those other smaller healthcare agencies, like other doctors' offices, specialty care that aren't part of hospital chain, to coordinate to give their vaccine. The vaccine yesterday, quite honestly, showed up without any heads up or warning. And so, and some of the paperwork that we were expecting, at least through some of the KDHE webinars that was supposed to come with it, didn't. So we've been working to draft a consent form and a protocol that has to get signed sometime today before we can start giving that.
All right, are other commissioners have questions or comments? If not, thank you, Jason. That it's helpful. Keep our fingers crossed and follow the guidelines. It's see where we can go from there.
Yes, sir. And, you know, information, like I said earlier, it does change very quickly, even from day to day on some of the stuff that we're told or that we learn. And so we're trying to not only keep up with those changes, but get information out to the public that's relevant to the public and not, you know, cause confusion too, as quickly as we can to make sure it's the most accurate. And so, and that is a challenge in these times too.
Okay, because this was a review of a resolution and with a possible action on the, is there a motion for this amendment, review of this amendment?
I'll move that we continue with the mask mandate.
I'll second the motion.
And I'm not sure we've even needed a motion on that part of it, but we'll do that anyway. All of those in favor of the motion that's on the table, and that is to take no action on and continue the mask mandate for Saline County. And I will ask for a roll call vote. Monty Shadwick.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Commissioner Sparks.
Aye.
Commissioner Weiss.
Aye.
Mr. Vidrickson is aye. That carries 5-0. Thank you, Jason, for your update, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Informational items. We'll move to item number 1, County Administrator's update. Philip Smith Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 2 items today. Wanted to let the commission know that we do continue working on the jail relocation, even over the holiday season here. The sheriff's staff met with the architect yesterday afternoon and went through a number of revisions to design plans. We're scheduled to skip next week for our regular call, but pick that up again on January 6th, and then have another on-site meeting in January as well. So continue moving forward on that. And then I just wanted to remind the public, mainly, I know the commissioners are all aware, that the city-county building and most other county facilities will be closed Thursday and Friday of this week for the Christmas holiday, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments from anyone? If not, we will move on to item number 2 with commissioners' comments. I hear none. Item number 3, announcements. I hear none. That'll move us to the adjournment part of this meeting, and with no further business to be convened, I'll ask if there's any other business that anyone wants to bring up. If not, I will declare the meeting as adjourned. Thank you for watching.